You're listening to Criticaleye's Inspiring Leaders podcast. Criticaleye is a global membership community with over 2 decades of experience supporting senior executives in their roles. We work with board-level executives, giving them opportunities to build their knowledge, skills, and access independent reference points outside of their immediate networks. Whether you're stepping up into a more senior role or aspiring to do so, looking to hone high-level stakeholder relationships, drive operational performance, build your own personal resilience as a leader, or have longer-term career goals such as moving into a plural career, Criticaleye's approach supports a range of leadership challenges and ambitions. Hello and welcome to this episode of the Criticaleye podcast, part of our Inspiring Leaders series where we look at what it means to be a highly effective leader in today's climate and invite high-profile chairs, non-executives and executives on to share their views. My name is Julia Brook, Marketing and Communications Director at Criticaleye, and I'm pleased to be hosting today's episode. Today I'm fortunate to be speaking to highly experienced CEO Stephen Cooper. Stephen is currently CEO at financial planning and wealth management provider Fairstone, as well as holding a number of non-executive roles, including Chair of Experian UK, plus he is Chair of Business in the Community's Employment and Skills Leadership Team. Stephen is also passionate about social mobility and is former Chair of the UK Government's Social Mobility Commission. Today I'll be talking to him about what it takes to be a successful CEO in today's fast-paced and turbulent climate. As someone who has held a number of CEO roles, Stephen is well placed to comment on those first 100 days of taking on the top job and what he's learned along the way about the approach executives should be taking. Welcome. Thanks for being on the podcast, Stephen.
Thanks for having me, Julia.
Thank you. So my first question really is, just to expand on the introduction I just gave, could you tell us a little bit more about your career pathway, about becoming a CEO, and was it something that was always on the cards for you, becoming a CEO?
I don't think so. I started in the workplace as a 16-year-old straight out of a state comprehensive. Okay. So I didn't go on to further education primarily because the circumstance to do so wasn't really there. Sure. And I joined Barclays in the most junior level, got put onto the graduate program as a non-graduate. The first, I think there were 4 of us, moved the first 4. And interestingly, 2 of us were still there best part of 30 years later.
Oh, really?
I went on to do a variety of things in different countries and different parts of the organisation, but was chief executive of personal banking, which is probably about 20-30% of the Barclays group globally, across the UK and Europe. Chief executive of business banking, particularly during the financial crisis and the support to SMEs. I learned a lot from that. I was largely the spokesperson of that for Barclays, and also led on payments globally. Divisional CEO, which is quite different to a standalone CEO, but very large divisions with large numbers of people and large numbers of customers, and having a large impact on UK society for sure. Then left there probably, I don't know, 8 years or so ago, because I couldn't progress any further, and wanted to do some different things and different experiences, having been so long in one organisation, man and boy, as it were, and became CEO of the leading private bank, Seahor & Co. Much smaller than Barclays, very prestigious, amazing client base, family owned, and they hadn't had many CEOs who hadn't been part of the family, so I changed it up quite a bit. I guess I learned the meaning of the word alignment there, given they actually technically reported into me, but could also fire me because they owned the organisation. Okay. But wonderful business, and we did quite a lot there in a relatively short space of time. And I then moved to become CEO of the leading specialist bank, Aldermore. Spent 5 years there, doubled it in size, made it a Sunday Times top 10 place to work, did a lot on the technology, repositioned where we were in the market. And there was a parent company there, Arm's Length, based in Africa. So I spent a lot of time sort of managing those relationships. And then I've been at Fairstone for all of 6 weeks, but the attraction to me was doing something outside banking, something a little bit different, and a different type of ownership. So I've done large PLC, I've done family owned, I've done subsidiary essentially, albeit it wasn't treated as a subsidiary, and I was part of the parent as well. So I was subject to a listed environment, just not in the UK. And now I'm experiencing the world of private equity, and
Sure.
It's very different. So being a CEO in those environments are quite different to each other, actually. But I'm enjoying it, and I'm in my first 100 days, as it were,
That's
where
exactly
I am.
what I was thinking. Like, this is so timely.
So it's very
doing the
timely.
podcast.
What am I learning this time round? And it's slightly different to what I've done before, but I think what I'm learning most, and from doing it before, sometimes well, sometimes less well, and bringing that into this role, is I think this chief executive needs to remember they've got 2 ears and you've got 2 ears and 1 mouth. So listen and observe what's going on in the business. So I have spent, Fairstone is I don't have to worry about going to South Africa anymore, travelling wise, although I miss some of that actually. But it is a fairly significant business in the UK. It's number 9 in the wealth management market.
Mm-hmm.
We've got loads of offices around the UK and Ireland. I've been to lots of different places in my first 6 weeks, so I've met a ton of people, and I've just listened to them. I've got their views of the world as to what's good about Fairstone, what's less good about Fairstone, what they think we could do better, what they think about our competition. I've talked to our competition. I've met them. I know some of them. But what it's helped me to do is get a really good feel at a granular level for the organisation, and I've been able to dovetail that with what the shareholders think about it, would like to do, getting clarity around objectives, and how we execute on 4 or 5 key things that will make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
And I will have communicated that and have it in place and up and running by the end of this month. So that will be well within my first 100 days.
Right.
But I think the important thing is, I came into the organisation, the business, with a perspective, and some of that was right, and some of that is actually not right, because I've observed different things.
Okay.
And I think it's important for a CEO to take a bit of time to do that, and it's really important that people in the business see the new leader doing that. I don't come into the organisation with a reputation in the wealth management business. I come with a reputation, hopefully a good one,
Right.
but I'm not known in the wealth management business per se. And I've now met, and we've got 1,500 people. I've been exposed probably to a good half of them.
Oh wow! That's
So
fair.
I've eaten my way through sandwiches around most of the UK, but that's my view. I think what they want to see you, hear you, transparency. What are you going to do? Why should they be bothered about whether you're the CEO, and why should they want to be in this organisation?
Okay.
I very much take the view that my job is to earn their right to want to be in the business. Their job is to earn the right to stay in the business.
Yeah. Sure.
But you can only do that if you sort of are transparent around what you're thinking, what you're trying to do, what their role is in that. And if you do that, in my experience, they'll get on and deliver for you.
Interesting, thank you. And I suppose it being not your first CEO role, you have, albeit that you said every business is different, and a CEO should go in with 2 ears open first and foremost. But you do have experience of having a first 100 days before. But taking you back to your first CEO role, what most surprised you about becoming a CEO, and was there anything you found really challenging and different that you weren't expecting?
So, my first CEO role was running divisions in large organisations, and you are accountable for that.
Yeah.
And I had 50,000 people who sort of, I guess, saw me as their leader. But there was another leader in the organisation, and I had several of those.
Yes.
All of whom good in their own way, and I enjoyed working with all of them. But the difference is when you are then a standalone CEO, which I don't think I really appreciated until I was in that. It's much more lonely.
Yeah.
And you are also accountable for things that you're just not at a divisional level. So I ran 2 banks in sort of 8 years, and I would have to speak to the regulators, in my case, or the Bank of England and other shareholders and other stakeholders about those banks and how we think about it. Some of it was technical about liquidity or balance sheet, and some of it was around strategy, engage with the shareholders.
Okay.
I did very little of that in Barclays. I did some of that, but frankly, other people, the treasury function did that, or the group CEO did that, or the investor relations team did that. When you are the standalone chief executive, that's you. And those stakeholders expect you to know your stuff. So I think that was my first learn. It's quite different stepping out from being a albeit a very large division, as big as many sort of smaller FTSE 100 businesses.
Right.
If you look at a P&L, for example, or a balance sheet, but I didn't have some of those specific accountabilities to the same degree.
Okay.
So that was one. The second one is it's quite lonely. And actually, certainly in a smaller company, the business I run are chunky in their own right, but not the size of a FTSE top 20 business. At one level, it's wonderfully liberating when you can pull the strings. You still got to go to the governance of a board or stakeholders, or get your executive committee sort of bought into what you're trying to do. It's not a democracy, but if you try and do it on your own without any of their support or buy-in, life's tough,
right,
and you probably won't survive. At the same time, you don't need everyone to agree to everything. But it's at that level is wonderfully rewarding, but it's also very visible.
Yeah.
And it's great when it goes well and goes right.
Yeah.
And it's very obvious when it doesn't.
Yeah.
And it won't all go right, because some things will go wrong or unexpected, or if you take your time to make every single decision, then you'll probably run out of time, or the market's moving quicker than you or your competitors are. So things will go wrong.
Yes, yeah.
And when it does, it's visible. The important thing is make sure if it goes wrong, it's not catastrophic. And two is, frankly, when things go wrong, great, hold your hand up. Okay, that didn't go as I expected. Why not? Let's understand it. There's some of the big learns. It's visible, wonderfully rewarding, very visible when it doesn't go well, and when there are times of stress, and I have been through some of those where the business was at risk from some things, not due to our own necessarily poor performance, but some external events that could actually have been existential for us or very near it. That's quite tough, and that's when it tests your resilience, and that's where you do need people around you who can give you a perspective or be a sounding board. And that's not easy to do within the organisation, because everyone's looking to you.
Yes,
you provide that to them.
Yeah.
So where do you get that from? And that can't be your board.
Yes.
It can't be your chair.
Yeah.
On the whole, because to some extent they're looking to you for that as well.
Sure.
They'll think about your performance. So it's that's what I mean, Bob, when I say lonely. Sometimes it's helpful to have not a shoulder to cry on, but it's really talking to people in a safe environment. Ideally, they've been through it themselves, they know what it's like, just to give you a sounding board, a perspective, a sense, or sometimes just talking about it, you come out of that meeting thinking, actually, I've got it off my chest and I now know what I'm going to do.
Yeah, very interesting, thank you. And just, I think, thinking about the first 100 days of leadership, we're often kind of told it's a critical time period for making changes, establishing that kind of forward strategy, obviously taking your time to do that, but doing it all the same. Was that something you felt that you had to do? And how did you balance taking the time to understand the business with actually making decisive changes that then, I don't know, would potentially define your leadership role or your leadership kind of style going forward?
So I think it is important to do it within 100 days. Because if you don't, what are you actually doing? And I think that then turns into, with your stakeholders, well, what's your stamp on this business going to be? In most cases, hopefully, a new chief executive has come in with, with an agreed agenda with the chair, the board, the shareholders, to what they're looking for. I hope that's why you've been appointed, and the skill set and the experience bank that you bring into it. And I don't think that necessarily needs to turn into fundamental change, unless fundamental change is needed.
Yeah.
If I just take Fairstone, but Fairstone's an amazing business. It's scaled in sort of 15, 16 years through 100 acquisitions, 99 of which have gone well, by the way, only one didn't work out. And that's turned into number 9 in the UK for assets under management in wealth management.
Yeah.
And it probably has one of the best risk profiles in the industry. That's amazing.
Yeah.
But there are plenty of things it doesn't do as well. Its back office efficiency is not where it needs to be. We're not as profitable as some in the peer group. I could go on, but so it's, what I don't want to do in my first 100 days is come out and say, all is great, because it's not all is great. At the same time, I don't want to rubbish the business either, because it's done some really good things, and there's some people in the business have worked very hard to do that. So it's building on what's already been successful, but with some very clear actions around that and explaining why. And therefore people get a sense of, okay, we know what the new chief executive wants to do.
Yeah.
The new chief executive is shaping the organisation to deliver against that.
Yeah.
But the 100 days is important, because
Yes.
otherwise it drifts and people don't really buy into you, or you're kind of invisible, or what do you stand for.
Yeah.
And you being visible to people, I think, is really important. The variety of stakeholders, so they recognise as a person, as a leader, who is in this organisation, because ultimately they will buy into you, they will deliver for you, and they do that better if they know what they're trying to do, and they're doing for someone they believe in.
Yeah, I think, as you just said, building the trust as well is important.
Really
and
important.
I mean, would you say, when you look back to your earlier kind of leadership roles, was there any kind of lessons learned there in terms of building trust, especially with your leadership team, because the people you're going to be working most closely with? Was there anything there that you kind of saw as like things you wanted to do differently in future roles, or?
I think on a leadership, I've learned the more open, transparent and honest you are, as much as you can be, because
Yes.
sometimes you can't, or it's shareholder sensitive, or price sensitive, or market sensitive, or you've got a view on an individual that frankly is personal, and
Yeah.
it's between you and them, and the head of HR or something. You don't want to make that public, but I think explaining what you think and why you think, and what are the evidence to support that,
Okay.
I think is, and even if that's a tough message, people will respect it if they see the transparency, the openness and the honesty, and the supporting data points
Yeah.
behind that. And then I think it's really important you have a good team around you, because you won't deliver unless you have that. And if you need to make some changes, get on and make them,
Right.
on the whole. And if they're not the right person for the role, or they're out of their depth, or whatever it might be, and I've experienced that, their people know, the organisation knows, and they're really looking to see what you're going to do about it. And the longer you leave that, it's more painful for everybody.
Yeah.
At the same time, you've also got to find a bit of balance to make sure people do have a bit of time. But your instinct usually is right.
You've been part of our community for quite a few years now, and as you know, at Criticaleye, one thing we really believe in is learning from not only people's successes and all the great stories and all the PR stories, but some of the mistakes and challenges they've had as well. So what would you say was your biggest early win as a new CEO, and what was a mistake that taught you the most, and in any kind of leadership role you've had?
Good question. I think mistake-wise, certainly in the early days, not listening enough and thinking I knew the answer, or predetermined. And maybe if I didn't really think that, probably coming across as if I did.
Okay.
And if the perception there, in fact, frankly, perception is reality. So I think if you come in thinking, great, I'm a CEO, and the big ego, and
Yeah.
everything, and I must have all these. It's interesting. I've actually, since I've been a standalone CEO, I've never had an office. I have a meeting room that
Okay.
I meet people in, because there's obviously sometimes the private, difficult conversations. But I like to hear what's going on around me, and I think that makes you, at least I feel I'm more personable and more open, and
Right.
one of them to a degree, because there is a hierarchy,
Yeah.
and there needs to be respect and everything else for that. That said, you also earn that. But I think in the past, maybe on occasion, I've probably sort of not listened enough, and that's why I repeat my point about having two ears and one mouth.
Yeah.
And it's not just actually for other people then to sort of receive you better. You will learn things by doing that. I've learned a ton of stuff by going around the country in the last 6 weeks and
Okay.
meeting a bunch of different people, and some of my instincts have proven right, and I've asked a whole load of questions. Some of those are dumb, and some of those actually have turned out to be not quite so dumb, actually. And some of those initial instincts are not right. And I think I'll hopefully make better decisions in the next 2 or 3 weeks than otherwise. The other, I think, key point is, not always, I don't have that where I am now. But if you're sure on a people thing, get on with it.
Right.
And I had one example in my previous organisation. Clearly, I'm not going to say who, but I knew, and I let it go too long. I tried to put a lot of support around them. Look, I thought that was the right thing to do. It's the only time in my career where I had my team looking at me because I knew that they thought I was doing the wrong thing. I thought I was doing the right thing for the individual. In hindsight, I wasn't.
Yeah.
Not for them or the business or my team.
Yeah.
And I knew that decision quite early on, and I didn't act on it.
Okay. So that was a learning point.
That was a learn.
Yeah.
What came out of that was that I like giving people extra responsibility. People who are smart, bright, want stretch. You have to do some of that, otherwise you lose talent. And how do you know how talented they are unless you give them an opportunity?
I think getting feedback as a CEO can be quite challenging sometimes. You never really know if the feedback is kind of honest and open. So I was just wondering, and you've also mentioned about CEO being a very lonely job, which obviously we do talk about here at Criticaleye a lot. How, as a CEO, as a new CEO, now as a more experienced CEO, do you actually get independent feedback or get the kind of data points you need, the critique you need? Or do you need it at all? Do you think you...
No, I think you do need
Yeah.
it. I mean, one of the joys of being a CEO, if I can say that, is everyone gives you feedback.
Right.
Everyone has a view on how well you're doing.
Yeah.
You have a board evaluation, they review your REM and, governance, and all those things are appropriate.
Yes.
But they all have a view.
Yeah.
So it's quite public in that respect, and it's largely one way, frankly.
Okay.
But that's part of the job. If you're not prepared to hear that,
Yeah.
then don't do it, and it's up to you what you do with that. And in my experience, some of that's probably fair, and some of that is largely not fair because
Okay.
they don't understand the context or whatever else, or there's something going on for them which makes them feel that way rather
Okay.
than
Yeah.
what you're specifically doing, but you represent the company or you represent the direction of travel, which is not working for them for some reason. As a CEO, you've got to have conviction in what you do, and the board and your stakeholders want to see that conviction. So at one level, if you have good conviction, it's quite hard to hear feedback.
Right.
But you do need to hear feedback. So I've learned, at least in my view, where do you get that from? And I think you need to find ways of doing that in a relatively safe environment.
Right.
And you can get off the board and so forth, but on the whole, they are in your corner until it goes toxic, and that's a different thing. And I hope that doesn't happen very often. But they're also your board.
Yeah.
So it's somewhat guarded. So how do you get that feedback in a safe environment? And how do you make sure also that feedback is relevant? So it's from someone who you can hear it from, and someone who is sufficiently well informed. So there are ways of doing that, and I would encourage any CEO to find their way of getting that. If you are tone deaf to that, or you don't do it at all, then it could either go wrong at some point in time, or you are probably just not making yourself being the best version of yourself.
Okay.
But you can also sometimes, and I have said this to a chair of mine, and I've been blessed with really good chairs. By the way, CEO needs to choose a good chair.
Right. Yeah, that's a good thing.
Because it is a partnership. This particular chair got feedback from every board member after every board meeting.
Right.
And at one point, I did say to them, I said, look, I think we're probably just a bit feedbacked out, and maybe we should give it a miss for a board meeting or two. Right. Particularly if you have a lot of board meetings, because if you're asked for feedback, someone really wants to know that you've listened to it and you're changing something, and you can't keep changing. So within reason is what I guess I'm probably saying as well.
Sure. No, thank you very much. I just conscious of time, and I'd love to ask one final question, and I suppose it's quite a stereotypical final question about kind of advice that you'd give. But what advice do you think you would give to a first-time CEO in today's market about their first 100 days in the role?
So the market at the moment is fast-moving. It's quite uncertain in many ways. Geopolitically, tech is fast changing, particularly with AI, and some of that I think is real and some of it maybe is hype.
Yeah.
In the UK, it's a challenging macro environment. If we're focusing on the UK here, so in many ways it's tough.
Yeah.
But first of all, congratulations, you're a CEO. Well done, you. It's a wonderful opportunity to lead and shape and do something with a business. So I would celebrate it. Feel good about yourself. On the whole, you've gone through a process to get there. So the board, the shareholders, the stakeholders, the regulators, there are regulators, on the whole, should think that you are the right person. You therefore need to believe you're the right person if you don't already believe it, but in a relatively humble way. So go in with conviction and confidence. Listen. There are tons of examples to learn from, not just within your industry. Be curious, because there's a lot out there. There's a lot happening within your own organisation that you may be taking for granted. Just keep asking, why could this be better, faster, cheaper, different? Just on the real sort of critical success of the first 100 days, it's also build relationships. So build relationships with the board, the chair, key stakeholders, which might be a shareholder, it might be a regulator. The earlier you build those and what's on their mind, and sharing your perspectives with them, it pays dividends later on. It makes those relationships just a little bit tighter. Not saying they're not going to hold you to account or ultimately make a call on you, but taking time to establish those relationships really important. Get support from those around you. It can be lonely. It's time consuming. Take time to, recharge, whatever that might be for you. There's a hobby or family or whatever else. It's very easy to get sucked in and work long hours every day. That's not healthy actually, and you won't be at your best if you don't put some boundaries in place. I'm quite clear on those boundaries for me and what it means to me. I think I work hard, I work long hours. I didn't get back from overseas till very late last night. I was in the office early this morning, but I don't do that every day. So lots of little things, but it's a wonderful moment in your career. There'll be a lot of people looking to you for guidance, leadership, making sure that you give them a fulfilling job to do. And on the whole, people want 2 things or 3 things in their working life, and you are the custodian of that organisation. At some point, you will hand it over to somebody else, and you must hand it over in better shape than what you inherited it. That's what being a leader or a custodian is. But they want to have fulfilling day jobs. They tend to want to have purpose with what they are doing, and they want to be in an environment that they enjoy. That means being around good, like-minded people, being appropriately paid, and working ultimately for a leader that they buy into. People leave leaders. They rarely leave a job.
That's really interesting. Thank you so much. That was such a fascinating insight into the first 100 days as CEO, and understanding all the experiences you've had and some of the challenges and also big successes as well. So thank you. Thank you so much to our listeners as well. All of Criticaleye's podcasts can be found on Podbean, Spotify or Apple Podcasts. For more on how we support leaders and our tailored programmes for senior executives, please visit our website www.criticaleye.com. And also look out for more episodes soon from Criticaleye. But in the meantime, thank you so much, Stephen, and I really hope to have you back on the podcast one day soon. Thank you.